Okay, welcome everyone. MXLink live here. Two wonderful guests I've got today. Lynn Valk from the Netherlands. Hi, Lynn. Lynn's
Hello.
currently racing this year's the 2020 Women's Motocross World Championship. And I have another wonderful guest from South Africa, Kirsten Landman. And Kirsten raced the Dakar Rally in Saudi Arabia earlier this year. 12 stages, massive event. She achieved it. She crossed the finish line, and yeah, a big congrats, Kirsten. And it's wonderful to have both you ladies here. Okay, just to start off, I'm just going to put some questions, and then I'm just going to sort of take a bit of a step back and let these ladies have a bit of a conversation between themselves. So Lynn, let's start with you. At 17, and you're competing in the Women's World Championship. Fortunate, the MXGP have managed to get in 2 rounds already. Your first round was at Medley Base in the UK, and then a week later at Valkenswaard in your home country. 2019 was a learning year again, but whatever magic you put in over the winter and pre-season training definitely showed in those opening rounds. Can you tell us what changes did you put in place over the winter?
Well, last year I finished. Last year was my first year on the 250, the WMX series. So that was a change, and like you said, it was a learning year. I didn't really feel confident, but I finished 7th overall. And this winter we worked hard physically, but also on the bike. So I had a lot more bike training. And going into Medley Basin, I was really feeling very confident. So, and that showed off like 3rd and 5th in the races. So that was really good. And then going to Valkenswaard, my home GP, it started the first moto not so good because I crashed with the start. But the second moto, I showed some good stuff, and even I rode a few laps on the 2nd position, and I finished 5. So that was really good.
Yeah, I think probably one of the main differences that I've noticed in those first 2 rounds in March was your speed. And I know Kirsten's going to comment on this subject, but to get that speed up around that first corner, and they were full gates, 40 on the gate for both rounds. You must have a pretty self-determined character who set goals, and you know that you can race up front with the best women in the world, with women who've got a lot more experience. What are your feelings to nail that first corner?
Well, the first year at WMX, I was on the 125, and I wanted to take a good start, but it just didn't work out because I was on the 125. But then on the 250, it was getting a much better, a better bike. So I was more in front, and yeah, that really helps a lot when you want to get a good result. So the start is really important, and I did 3 good starts out of 4 so far. So let's keep that going.
Okay. Now, Kirsten, I know that it was a massive planning to put in actually even entering and being there to race the Dakar. I think you've said at least 2 years in the making. Not to mention the challenge, 12 stages in 12 consecutive days with that one rest day in the middle. You said, you've never managed a race which tests your endurance, but also the speed was was a massive challenge for yourself, perhaps because the race was so one of the toughest in the world. What can you pinpoint as those major challenges over the 12 days?
So, like you said, going back to what you first said, is the preparation. You know, people always say getting to Dakar is the hardest part before you even got to the start line. I mean, it was 2.5 years of preparation for me. In that, we've got to find the funding. You've got to put together the sponsors with the proposals, and it takes a lot of time. And I was lucky enough to crack Ryobi Africa closer to the time, and they came in as a once-off sponsor, which is unheard of with an athlete. You would know, Lynn, to find sponsors isn't easy, and when you come across someone that comes all in and pays for everything, it makes a huge difference. And that made things a lot easier going to Dakar. And then now, once the sponsors were on board, it was time to concentrate on the rally. And I had never raced 12 days in a row in my life. I don't think many people have. You know, we get on the bikes and we train consecutively day in and day out, but I was riding 12 hours a day on the bike for 12 days in a row with that one rest day in between. And to mentally prepare yourself for something like that, you know, I was lucky that coming from hard enduro, I could prepare. You know, when you get to those stages where you don't feel like you can carry on anymore, and you know, you just have to carry on going. Whereas from hard enduro, you get put into those stages and put into those dark places all the time in races like Romaniacs and Roof of Africa and Sea to Sky, you know. And having done all those races for the last 5-6 years really made me feel that I was mentally prepared. But in doing that, my preparation leading up to the Dakar, I was working with a mind coach to overcome those days where you feel like giving up. I'd wake up on some mornings. I mean, we're getting up every morning between 3 and 3:30, and you're having to eat, and it was really cold. Some mornings was -2 degrees, and you've got to kit up in the dark, and you've got to go ride a 200-300 kilometer liaison even before you start racing, and it is freezing cold. I mean, we weren't prepared I wasn't prepared. I don't think many people were for the cold. You think Saudi Arabia, you're thinking it's the desert, it's going to be warm, but at night the temperatures dropped below minus, meaning that we're waking up in the morning and riding in really, really cold temperatures. And me coming from South Africa, I mean, I've never seen snowfall, you know, so for me to be riding in really cold conditions, I wasn't equipped for it, nor was I prepared for it. That's probably something that got to me the most, was the cold mornings. And even the days, I mean, some of the days, the max temperature got up to 18 degrees. And I know you guys from Europe, 18 degrees is warm, but for me, our winters get to 18, and for us, that's cold. So riding in the cold was a huge task to overcome. But then again, like you say, 12 days consecutively in a row, you know, it gets you down. But at the end of the day, I was going there to finish, and there was no way that I was not going to finish. Whether I had to be, you know, it's a bit of a sick saying, but dead or alive, that was my mentality. And I also went there with a plan. You know, I spoke to a lot of people in preparation for this, and in the 2.5 years, you know, I had a lot of people that had raced Dakar previously that I trained with and that I made contact with, and I got so much advice from so many people. And they said, you know, to first Dakar, go there to finish. You know, even though everyone there's to race, but you got to focus on finishing and not get caught up in the race, because that's when accidents happen. And you know, the accidents at this Dakar were really high speed accidents, and a lot of people were unfortunate not to be able to walk away from them, and you know, 2 lives were lost. So it was, I had to keep reminding myself that I'm here to finish, I'm not here to race. And that was a really hard thing as well, to try and not get into that race mode and just focus on finishing and finishing safely. So there was a lot that I was dealing with while I was doing Dakar. For me, it was more mentally the toughest thing I've ever done in my life. Physically, I was well prepared, but mentally, riding those high speeds, seeing the crashes, and for sure, it was mentally the hardest thing I've ever done in my life.
Yeah, I followed you the women's in the 3 classes, the bike, the car, and the quad, and you could, well, of course, it's hard to imagine because you're not there. But what stood out?
Sharon, I can't hear you. It seems to
Can't
have
you?
gone out.
Okay. Can you hear Lynn?
Sorry, I couldn't hear you there. The sound seemed to fade out quite a bit.
Lynn, can you speak?
Yeah, I can hear you both.
Can you?
Okay.
I can hear you, Lynn. I can't hear you, Sharon.
Okay.
Sorry.
Lynn, can you tell Kirsten just to go out and then come back in again?
Sharon tells me to go out and then come back in.
Okay. Must I?
Yeah.
How do I do? Must I leave and then come back in?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. I'm just going to play a clip of you, Lynn. What I wanted to talk about was that mental aspect and how you manage to work on when things don't go to plan in the race and you come back. How do you manage it? How do you turn it around so that you can make a positive out of something that didn't go to plan? Right, let's see if Kirsten's back. Can you hear me now?
There we go. Yeah, I can hear you perfectly. Sorry about
Yeah.
that. I don't know what happened.
No problem. Okay, we're just going to take a clip of this is Lynn at Medley Basin, and Kirsten talked about that point where you have to deal with your head when things don't go right. Kirsten would go back to the bivouac, and hell, you got to wake up in the morning and do it all over again. And Lynn knows that a slight feeling where she comes off the track and you may have just missed the podium for a couple of points.
Yeah.
It's tough. Anyway, this is Lynn at Medley Basin.
But she was being caught by the Yamahas of Larissa Papameyer and Lynn Valk.
That was Medley. So yeah, Lynn, what are your thoughts when things don't go to plan and you basically go back to your pit and you have to regroup because your next race is a couple of hours away? What have you learned?
Like in Medley Basin, I missed the podium with 1 point, equal points with the 4. So I was happy, but also a little bit disappointed that I missed the podium. But it was the first race of the year, so I was also happy. But also in Valkenswaard, like I said, I crashed the first moto with the start, and I was like angry, and I get as soon as possible on the bike again and start my race. I came from last to 7th, so I was racing my race and try to pass as fast as possible, and it did. I finished 7th, so it was still some good points, and yeah,
That's really good.
Yeah, those sort of conditions test you as a person as well, and I suppose it sorts out the riders from the people who think this is too hard and will go home. Kirsten, the terrain, just managing the terrain, definitely different from the Dakar in South America. What did you? I'll show a clip of just a rocky section, just to let people know what a rocky section was actually like. But the rocky section is not just for an hour. I mean, motos on a GP track, we go 30 minutes plus 2, Lynn.
yeah, 20.
Yeah. So this just gives people an idea of what Kirsten had to deal with. And and of course it varied because then you had the deep desert sands as well. How did you manage the different terrain?
So in that clip you guys just saw, that for me is the stuff that made me smile, because as you can see in that video there were like guys scattered everywhere, and coming from a hard enduro background, the tougher the terrain got in terms of the thicker the sand, the rockier it was, the steeper the climbs, the worse the downhills were. That's when I felt that I made up a lot of time. And at Dakar now, from the previous Dakars, I had heard that like Peru, the last year was 100% sand, and it was like, apparently the hardest, most technical sandy climbs, super thick sand, and like that sort of stuff made me really excited about what Saudi Arabia had to offer. But going into this Dakar, the first 5 stages were really cool in terms of variation. We would go from rocky tracks like that to really sandy tracks, and then would go into the dunes and then back. So you would variate between rocky, sandy, flat tracks, and then really cool dune riding within a day, and then in these beautiful canyons with overhanging rocks. And then from after like stage 5 until for the rest of the 6 stages, it became like really flat, sandy plateaus, and then they would send us across a few dunes, and then again sandy plateaus for really long kilometers. I remember the one straight that we did was literally dead straight for 40 kilometers, and it was flat out. I was hoping for a bit more of technicality in terms of harder riding, in terms of like trickier waypoints, picking up trickier waypoints on the dunes, putting a really high waypoint on top of a dune, and like really hard for us to get there. But it was cool, with it being in Saudi Arabia, there isn't much variation that the country can offer. They've either got sand, flat sandy plateaus, they've got dunes, or they've got that rocky section that you saw. Whereas coming from South America, you could also get the variation of weather, you could get the variation of altitude, and then you could get the variation of terrain going coastal to like Amazon greenery. Whereas here it was just those 3 variations, which it wasn't necessarily boring, but for 12 days it was the same thing over and over again. So with it being in one country, going forward, that for me, I'm just a once-off Dakar rider, but the guys that have done Dakars over all the years were saying that they were hoping for a bit more variation, but you can't get much more variation. But it was cool to be able to change the terrain and to be able to ride in different trains, and to ride in those amazing dunes was incredible. One moment you're riding and it's like the dunes holding you, and then next minute the dunes. It was an incredible experience, and then of course being able to navigate across that stuff, which is my favorite thing. I love navigation, made it even more trickier. So it was incredible, and as you can see from the backdrops behind me, some of the terrain that we rode through was really breathtaking. Some of the times I honestly just wish I could have stopped and taken it all in and just had a look around, but there's no time for that. You're riding at 120 to 140, 50 kilometers an hour, and everything's just flying past you. No time to look at anything.
And speaking of terrain, Lynn, Valkenswaard, do you really like that track?
Yeah, I like Valkenswaard.
Even Kirsten remarked just before we went live that she stood in those ruts, and I'm only short, so I would definitely disappear. Yeah, tell us. Can you tell us? It's deep black sand. And I know Lommel is worse. What have you grown up riding that type of sand track?
Yeah, I've always rode sand tracks. Like the Netherlands, the most 90 to 100% is sand. So I love sand tracks. But definitely Valkenswaard was tough. It was so much raining, and also Medley Basin. It should be hard packed, but it was like all muddy and sketchy. And Valkenswaard, it was tough. There was so much rain. So I prefer to ride in the rain. It doesn't matter to me. You know, I grow up with it. The winter seasons, it's always raining here. So that I think it was good for me that it was raining, but I would want it also without rain to see what would happen.
Yeah, yeah. And how do you manage all the lines? Looking up some of the, Kirsten, I'll show you a clip. Looking up some of the faces of the jumps, you could have 15 different lines. Yeah. Which one do you pick, Lynn?
The one in the middle.
I think you need to give me some lessons on how to ride ruts. I can't ride ruts. I fall over and I stick my legs out and then I wobble and I fall over.
Yeah, in Valkenswaard there was a lot of ruts, and before the second moto on Sunday they flat the track, so it was the track was pretty flat on Sunday, but still pretty fast. The lines came in, and it was a struggle for everyone.
Yeah, yeah. Do you think that's been an advantage, Lynn, just to race the World Championship Series by learning to ride and race on sand?
Yeah, definitely. But the most of the WMX series is hardpack, so that's also what I trained like the end of last year when it was still more dry. I tried to do as much hardpacks because that's something I can learn in every time because the sand tracks I'm used to it. So
Okay.
hardpacks for me is more difficult.
Yeah, okay. All right, let's take a clip of Valkenswaard uh, and up around the first corner, Lynn, in third.
Valkenswaard, the Netherlands. Flying start for the Yamaha of Larissa Papenmeier. Duncan right there in second. Lynn Valk was third.
Yeah. It's
That was a good
like
moment.
I gotta say it's impressive for 17 years of age. Those girls that she's racing against, Larissa, you know, they have 8 years experience on you, Lynn. I know that Kirsten's got plenty of pearls of wisdom, but but I know that Kirsten also admires the women who race in different disciplines.
Oh yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
And
Okay.
motocross especially because that's honestly one of my weaknesses. And I've got to get on a motocross track and I just stick into a line every time and hit that same line lap after lap. And like you say, ride ruts and jumps and you doing jumps with ruts and jumps. Those are like two of my worst things. So a combination of that, I won't even go near the track. So big respect to what you guys are doing. And like I said, at such a young age to be where you are now, like I said, I can't wait to watch you really take on those other girls worldwide.
Yeah, I think it's like you say, the ruts and the jumps. I think when you're in a race, you don't really think about it. It's just go for the jump. But I think for me, it's to see Dakar. It's I think it's difficult.
Well, in the
Very
conditions
difficult.
you ride in, and you like sand, and you can go fast, so you've got already 2 out of the 3 boxes ticked. All you need to learn now is to be ride on it for endurance, to ride long, and you got it. You know, they say the best enduro riders are motocross riders because you guys already have that skill of handling a motorbike, braking, cornering, and body positioning, and you know how to go fast. So it's just a matter of learning endurance, which comes over time. It's not hard. You know how to train really hard. And then riding technical stuff, which is just line choice, just like riding ruts. So it's, I think for you guys, you maybe one day when you're older and you're retired from motocross, you can take up the Dakar Rally.
Yeah, maybe, who knows? But I think also the navigation. I think that's also difficult to what I see on television because I've been following it since I was a kid. You know, watch it on television. So
what makes the navigation so cool, I love the navigation because it makes you feel so much safer with what you know, with what's coming up. So every single caution, every single like something that you need to know in the road book, like whether it's a dip in the road book or there's a rocky section coming up or there's a turn, it's all marked on your road book. So if you stick into your road book and you're watching what you're doing and you're in line with your road book all the time and your distance, you can, that's why the guys that race at the top can go so fast, because they put they put their whole life into that road book and they trust it. And you can see the guys that mark the road books mark them really well. And it's like and if you're hitting all your waypoints along the way, I can never kind of explain it, it's like a treasure hunt. So it's really fun. And that's where I like the road book, because if you're a really good navigator, you can make up so much time on those faster riders, because sometimes the faster riders try go too fast. Or if I say they go faster than they navigate, and they end up losing time because they get lost or they miss waypoints. So at the same time, you've got to be a clever rider, as well as trying to be fast. It's all got to come in. But the road book is, I don't know anyone who doesn't like road book. It is so much fun. And like I said, it's like treasure hunting. And every time you get a waypoint, it's like, yes, I got it. And then you move on to the next one, which makes it really fun.
Yeah, it sounds really cool. Yeah.
If you've got PlayStation, get the Dakar Rally PlayStation game. It's just like that.
Okay, I can try.
Start training now.
Okay, that's cool. I'm just looked at some comments. I got a lot of people watching you guys. Yeah, and people have posted comments, and it's quite amazing, because they're just saying this is awesome to listen to. So yeah, it really is. It's a great honor for me to bring two women together from different parts of the world, and chat. Yeah. Okay, let's just turn to first, Kirsten. 20 the 12 days. Yeah, and just that task of racing. I don't suppose you are on your limit for a whole race day, but how do you measure the energy? How do you measure the motivation level? Do you get to that rest day and think, thank God, before we have to finish the rest of the stages? I know there were difficult times as well, especially with Pablo. That it was awful. But yeah, how did you manage to keep things in perspective, knowing that the goal was to get to the finish?
So for me, I went in there with the mentality of each day is a new race. So I wasn't thinking of it. It is in your mind, but I would go, stage 1 is one race. We finish that day and then we move on to the next day. I never thought about stage 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. When the race day came, it was, I was working towards each day as a race, knowing that the race day, looking forward to the race day, because when that race day came, it was so welcomed to be able to just wake up the next morning and have a lie in and just cool off. And it was really important for me, because that second part of the rally was the hardest part of the rally by far. It was really mentally challenging for me, and I hit quite a low in terms of mentally. I was getting very frustrated with my riding, and so to be able to recuperate from that race day and then be strong going into that next week of racing was really important, because if I had gone from the first week straight into the second week of racing without that race day, there were many times where I wanted to throw in the bag and call it quits. But it's at the end of the day, you come back, and I didn't get much chance to look at my phone, but my team that were with me showed me messages of support from people from South Africa and people all over the world, which was really important to me, and that helped a lot. So to see the support and the love for my family and friends coming through was amazing. And like you said, with the unfortunate loss of Paulo, that put a big dampener on the race, and you could feel it. You could feel it in the pits. You could feel it in with amongst the racers. It was really sad, and I mean, it's never nice to lose a racer, and a racer of his caliber was very sad. But what is hard is to get back onto the motorbike and keep racing, and for those top guys to have carried on going and racing at the speeds that they do was incredible. But like I said, it was each day was a new race, and I just had the finish line in sight, and it was just, it's so weird. It's, our courses have blinkers on and they don't see anything near to their side, and I'm sure you feel the same way when you race. Then on the start line, it's just you focusing on your goal and what you want to do. It was the same thing, that 12 days went by so quickly, but you're just so focused on what you're there to do that nothing else really matters. You're there to finish, and you will do whatever it takes to get there. And I think about it now, to go and ride 12 days on my motorbike, do 7,800 Ks, I'd rather vomit. I want to feel like I want to vomit. It's a daunting feeling to think, oh gosh, to go and do it now. But by the time you get to the Dakar Rally, you are so ready for it that there's no other way. It's do or die.
And let's just take a clip of some photos of Kirsten. This was on Saudi. And probably Kirsten brought up quite a good point, Lynn, because if you focused on racing the whole championship of the it was 6 rounds this year, which the championship goes from March all the way through to, I think the final was in beginning of September. That was the calendar. That's a challenging task in itself, because some of the gaps between the rounds, Kirsten, are 6-8 weeks. With and that's a balancing act in itself, to maintain fitness and also to maintain mental focus. Not to mention the situation we're in now, where we're not actually sure when the next round will be. Lynn, how do you break down racing over such a long period of time?
I think that was the main problem from last year, because last year we had like an 8 weeks gap, and I think I lost myself a little bit, so the last rounds was not so good. But yeah, for now it's for the same for everybody. I try to do as much cycling and watch some videos back and home gym, but it's a difficult situation right now. But 6 races otherwise we had this year, but also I had the Dutch Championship. It was new this year, 6 races, and also the European Championship, like 5 races, I think. So that it would have been a pretty busy season if this wouldn't happen. But yeah, I'm excited to get back racing because I really miss it.
Okay, I suppose a final question would be, Kirsten, you've achieved that massive challenge. I know we had a brief chat before we went live on how can you top this, but having already completed it, how satisfied do you feel as a person and as a rider that goal was ticked? And does it make you feel a little bit more confident in not rushing to make the next decision on what to race? Yeah, what do you think?
So yeah, your first question: how does it feel to have done the Dakar? I always mumble when anyone asks me that question, because I'm lost for words. Like I say, I can't believe that 2.5 years of prep, and now it's done. We're already 4 months home from Dakar, and I think back now and it went by in a flash. I think if I ever had to go back to Dakar, I would like to go back and do it, just ride it and just try and take it all in and enjoy it a bit more, because it was a whirlwind, this whole thing. And then, you know, your second question, like, you know, what's next? For me, Dakar gave me a lot of clarity. It opened up so many more things for me. That it made me realize so much, and in that, it made me realize how much I really enjoy enduro, extreme enduro. That's my real passion. It's where I'm comfortable and feel safest, and it's what I enjoy the most. You know, when I talk about extreme enduro, I feel my face light up and I get excited. So for me, you know, this year I was supposed to partake in the whole West Series, competing in Erzberg, Romania, Lagares, and unfortunately, due to what's going on worldwide, and like you said, Lynn, everyone's in the same situation. We've had to pull the plug on that. You know, the first few rounds have already been cancelled. So, you know, this year we'll be concentrating on, you know, what Dakar has done for me now. It's opened up many doors here in South Africa. I've started doing a lot of motivational talks and that sort of thing, because apparently my story inspires a few people. So I've started doing that, which has been really cool. It's different. It's talking about riding, but it's not on the bike. And in that, I want to do a lot more teaching and training, and obviously world tours was a part of that, but we'll have to put that onto a hold. And your third question, what is your other question? Sorry, Sharon.
I was just trying to see, did you feel because there's a lot of adrenaline and build up that goes into before you actually get to the event, and then after the event is finished, that adrenaline drops. And I'm not saying it's a bit of a down feeling, but maybe it's a release that that highest aspiration was nailed. Do you feel more relaxed in knowing that that hardest challenge was completed?
So a lot of the guys spoke about at Dakar. They wait until the Dakars hit you, and I'm like, "What are you talking about?" They're like, "You'll see, you'll know about it." And I'm still going through it now. It's real, and it's really like you sit twiddling your thumbs. You're like, "What's next?" I now know why guys keep going back to Dakar every year, because even that scrum to find money, to find sponsors, it's exhilarating. And like you say, it's that build up of nerves. And then once you found the money, which is normally in such a short time, you go to the Dakar and you race, and then you come back, and like we are now, we're sitting and twiddling our thumbs. But for me, it has been that sort of thing. I've had to kind of like adapt, you know, like what's next. I've got to figure out what's next, you know. So in saying that, I did say that I've started business sort of, but I can't comment on that. It is. It's like I said, it's been 2.5 years of my life, and now like the next event, I don't know. I was chatting to people the other day, and I was like, "Well, what did you guys want to hike Kilimanjaro or something?" You know, I've got a plan to do something, whether it be racing or something, because the last two and a half of my years have just been dedicated for this one event. I feel like I'm a bit like a little bit of a lost heart now. I'll still carry on riding, carrying on training and racing locally here when things go back to normal. But I need to find a big event, and in that, I think my next biggest thing will definitely be to prepare for Erzberg Rodeo, because that is such a big race, and it's one of the biggest extremes in the world.
It highlights the point on how adaptable people who participate in motorsport are. You adapt all the time, you know, it's before you get to the race, it's during the race, it's after the race, it's planning the next one. There's uncertainties and weighing up decisions, and I think that's probably why I wanted to bring in MX Live Chats, was the fact that I know that flexibility and changes of circumstances affect riders and racers all the time, and that's what you deal with, and it has to be admired, because you know not everybody puts themselves out in those types of situations. Maybe Lynn, going on Kirsten's words that she had set those goals in place. What's the 17-year-old from the Netherlands aspiring? I know you'd like. I can see a top 3, finish for sure. What's uppermost in your mind that you do want to achieve?
Definitely, I want to become a world champion. And for this year, I set my goals like I wanted to do the top 5 at the end of the year, but I also wanted to do maybe a few podiums. We have to see how that goes, if we're even able to go riding again. But I definitely made the goals, and I hope I can achieve them. Become a world champion in one day.
Awesome.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much, both of you. I've got about 15 comments on the sideline. One is, I'll just read out one for you. This is from Sonia, and she says, I love this, and what an honor to just listen to these heroes. So,
Cool.
yeah, it's very
Thank
cool.
you.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Kirsten. It's totally awesome. I hope I can follow you. If Uzbek is the next big thing, then for sure I keep in contact. And Lynn, let's see round 3. I think we've got Majora, Italy, maybe July, hopefully.
Yeah, I hope so.
And I think we'll be racing into the end of the year as well.
Yeah.
So thank you both ladies very much, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
luck with everything, Lynn.
Yeah,
Thanks,
you
Sharon.
too.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Bye.